Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi. Happy 4th of July. It is 7 minutes after 6 o'clock. I had originally scheduled this live stream for 6:30 and suddenly realized that I had some time. So I might as well come on now and get things started. I hope everybody's having a great 4th of July and enjoying themselves. The humidity has been just absolutely ridiculous, and it continues to be ridiculous. In fact, just to tell you an odd experience that I had last night. So I'm driving home, and I had my air conditioner on in the car, which usually at night I don't do. I like to drive with the window down and get some outside air, but for some reason I had the air conditioner on, and I had it on a little high, and the AC got my car very cool. Well, when I got close to my destination, I shut the AC off and I opened the window, which of course created all this condensation. And when I parked my car, went out for a short time, and then when I came back, I noticed that as I was driving, I looked on my dashboard, and this little dim red light was on that I had never seen before, and I was like, "What is this?" And then as I pulled over and I looked closer, it was the door sensor on the car. I have an old 2003 Toyota, by the way, that gets like 37 miles to the gallon. It has almost 240,000 miles on it. I'm driving it into the ground. Well, the light was very dim, but it was on, which I thought was really strange. And it got a little bit brighter, but it wasn't bright as if any of the doors were open. And I checked. All my doors were closed and locked and everything else. So I get home and I shut the car off, and the door light would not go off. I was kind of in a bit of a panic for a brief moment, because I thought, what am I going to do? The next day's the 4th of July. Everything is closed. And what if this drains my battery if it's on all night? Well, thankfully, it wasn't. It shut off at some point during the night, and what it was that the cold that I created and then bringing in that very warm, humid air when I opened the window and created all that mass condensation. Well, the moisture basically got on the door sensor and inside the door lock, and that created a short in the system and caused the light to stay on. Once the moisture disappeared, the light went off, which is how I found it this morning, and it's been fine all day. I mean, you know, it's just odd. It was something that I had never anticipated, and I have, by the way, a history of things happening at holiday weekends when you absolutely desperately need somebody, and you can't because everything is closed, like breaking your tooth 2 days before Christmas, and your dentist on vacation until December 27th, and you have to wait 5 days or 8th, and I think I had to wait 5 or 6 days to go in and see him with a half broken tooth and in need of a crown. Your check engine light coming on, your air conditioner breaking like mine did on a Friday evening going into Memorial Day weekend. So you know, I seem to, and there have been a number of things like this over the years. I'm sure stuff like this happens to everybody, but I don't know, you just sort of feel singled out about it. So look, I hope everybody had a great holiday. I had a nice good swim this morning in my pool, and it's a work day for me, which is okay, because they feed us lunch and dinner, which is nice, and we have our own little 4th of July celebration here. Now, let's go to weather. There are a couple of things that I want to address, and actually, we're going to put the tropics front and center here, and we're going to start with the weather system that is off the southeast coast and extends to just south and southwest of Bermuda. And this is the latest satellite loop of this, which is not being cooperative. Hang on one second, folks. I'm trying to make it a little bigger. Let's see, maybe that'll work. But here it is. Okay, so here's our satellite loop. And if you look off the Florida coast, you see that counterclockwise turning? That is a cold upper low that has been out in the Atlantic, started east of Bermuda and dropped southwestward. That has moved westward now, and it's basically separating itself from the clouds and thunderstorms that are to the east of it, from Bermuda south and west, and it's in those clouds that we're probably going to see some kind of low develop out of all of this over the next couple of days. And the Hurricane Center is rating this a 60% chance of becoming a tropical depression over the next couple of days. Conditions are actually conducive for development with that upper low now out to the west and completely separated from all that convection. We have a warmer environment for a low-level circulation center to develop. And in fact, we have seen several small low-level circulations over the last couple of days come out of this and move northwestward. They didn't develop into anything, but because of the presence of the upper low creating strong winds aloft, well, with the low going to the west, it creates a much more favorable upper air environment where the upper air winds are a bit lighter. So that's something that we're going to have to look at. And I'm going to come back to this in a second, but I want to go to the wide Atlantic view and show you that there is a second tropical wave. If you look down in the lower right in the far eastern Atlantic, we have a fairly vigorous tropical wave here generating a lot of showers and thunderstorms as it moves toward the west. Now, conditions actually are rather somewhat conducive for development over the next couple of days. And in fact, a couple of the models do spin up a closed surface circulation out of this between now and Saturday as it moves west or west-northwest. The problem is when you get toward the Caribbean, you can start to see what is a bit more of an unfavorable environment. If you notice, if you look at the clouds close to the islands there east of Trinidad, you've got some clouds going in one direction, some clouds going in the other. The upper air winds there are some strong west winds there in the upper atmosphere. So when this system, in whatever form it's in, be it a wave or if it winds up developing a closed circulation, it may wind up just getting sheared apart by the time it gets further to the west, when it gets to between 55 and 60 degrees west. We'll watch it. The Hurricane Center rates this a 30% chance of developing at this point. It's a little early for systems in the eastern Atlantic. And by the way, this is the region where ocean water temperatures have been running below average, but we want to point out that over the last week or so, there's been a bit of a change, and the water temperatures there have actually warmed a bit. So that that part of the equation is perhaps evening itself out to some degree. It's still a shade below normal, but it's not as below normal as it was. But it's still too early for systems in the eastern Atlantic. They're pretty rare until you get to maybe the latter part of July. So we'll see what happens. I'm more interested, I think, in this one because of its proximity. But at the end of the day, this system is not going to have an opportunity to do anything with regards to impacting a coastline because of this next cold front that's coming down. At least that's the way it looks at the moment. Unless it somehow gets left behind, if the upper trough misses it, I don't know that it will. I think the front that's coming down is going to pick it up. By the way, if you look up across eastern Pennsylvania into New Jersey, we had another blow up of thunderstorms this afternoon, and some of them were strong to severe, but they were fewer than they were yesterday, a little less intense, and they are dropping south and southwestward. So as far as fireworks shows are concerned for my area, I think they're going to be fine. Most of this is going to be gone in the next couple of hours, but there's been some heavy activity down in parts of central and southern Pennsylvania, down into Maryland. Some areas getting several inches of rain out of all of this. So this tropical air mass has just been obscene, and it just continues. Now, let's take a look at the upper air. I want to show you the NAM model today. We could actually probably use any of the models because they all have the same idea, but I want to use the NAM because the NAM has got the has 1 hour increments to 36 hours and then 3 hour increments after that. So it'll show you just what's happening in terms of the jet stream. Now, if you look at this, I know it looks a little bit confusing. If you're new to all of this, if you look near the top of the map, you see where the lines are. Those are height lines. How high do we go in the atmosphere to get a pressure of 500 millibars? And basically, it's kind of like lanes on a highway. So the winds blow from west to east. So just picture if you are standing inside, in between two of those lines in South Dakota, for example. If you wanted to walk the line, you would walk that line that's labeled 594 across Minnesota, Wisconsin, up into southern Canada, and then kind of swing around and walk across Maine and over Nova Scotia. That is the base of the jet stream blowing from west to east. To the south of that, the height line, if you follow it along, is closed off. That is an upper high, so the wind blows clockwise around an upper high. We've got a ridge here in the east, so it's very, very warm, and you've got some troughing as you go down over Florida. That's that upper low that we talked about that has separated itself from that disturbance out in the Atlantic. Now, take a look at what happens over the next couple of days, because this is how a pattern changes. Watch the area over the northeast. The upper high shifts westward, okay? And once it gets far enough west, it allows a trough to drop down out of Canada. We're only, by the way, into tomorrow afternoon, so as we go through the NAM. And then we move into Friday, and you can see how that jet stream lowers. And notice what happens in the east, off the east coast. You've got this east-west high, one that's centered out in Kansas, and then it kind of weakens a bit, but it's still rather strong off the mid-Atlantic coast. But it's a narrow east-west ridge here, kind of flat, and notice the trough kind of splits the ridge in half and drops in. This is the next cold front that's going to be coming through here on Friday, and that trough brings the base of the jet stream, the base of the westerlies, as we call them, down to almost into to the Delmarva Peninsula and off the Virginia coast. So you're turning the winds along the east coast, which, if I back up right now, are actually either light and variable, or because of the way the upper high is, we are actually seeing winds coming in from the east in the upper atmosphere around the base of that high. Well, finally, and that's unusual, and finally, we're going to get those westerlies to come in. This is why I think if something does develop from the system in the Atlantic, that unless it somehow gets trapped down here and the westerlies don't get far enough, it should interact with that front and move along to the northeast. That trough does only get down so far, so it's not a far-gone conclusion that it's going to move out, but I think the odds do favor it. As far as the weather is concerned, though, at the very least, this brings down a really nice dry air mass for the weekend. So we can finally, we'll finally be celebrating good hair again across the Northeast and down into the Mid-Atlantic states. This is going to be a pretty nice push of air in the short range. So we can look at how this translates on the GFS model. We'll switch to that, and again, not much. Thursday's pretty much a repeat of today. And you can see that there's a large, area of showers, scattered showers and thunderstorms Thursday afternoon from the Midwest and the Southeast and down into the Gulf states and in parts of the Northeast. Now here's that front for Friday, which I think could produce, depending on the timing of the front, could produce some widespread thunderstorm activity in the middle part of the day before it moves on out. Where you see the isobar off the Florida coast here, okay, the way it's bent like this, right in this area is probably where you might see a reflection of that tropical system. But then the front at this point, as we move into Saturday, look how far south it gets. It pushes down into South Carolina, northern Alabama, northern Georgia. So that push of air from that high gets pretty far to the south. That's a pretty strong high for this time of year, 1028 millibars. So this is going to be a really nice, enjoyable 2 or 3 day stretch of low humidity and sunshine. And then Monday, we start the process of going back in the other direction, except that there's another front that comes through late Tuesday, not as strong as the one that's coming through on Friday. And there'll be another one to follow after that, because the pattern continues to suggest that the ridge is going to go into the western part of the United States, and that's going to allow for troughs in the east coming through. And in a situation like this, when you look at the upper air here on this map, with the jet stream kind of having that trough here in the eastern part of the United States, we're at the middle of next week now, a week from today, we're going to see, I'm going to go back up because we only have out about half of the GFS, the new GFS, but so let me just back up again. So here we are on the 4th of July, split the ridge, move it to the west. So all the hot weather now is going to be going into the west and southwest. That's a very, very strong high, that's upper high that builds into Colorado and Utah, and it just sits there, and then you start to see the weakness is going to be in the east. So while the ridge from time to time does kind of try to nose its way into the east, it gets cut off by short waves in the jet stream from Canada that limit how far east it gets. And there's just a tendency for cold fronts that are going to try and come through every 3 days or so. Could it get hot for a day or two? Sure. Is it going to get hot, steamy, and humid for a 7 or 8 day stretch like the one we're in now? Not unless you get not unless the model is wrong and you get that big ridge to build into the eastern part of the United States again. That is the models have not been showing that. The European, we can take a look at what the European is doing. The European has the same idea here, splitting that ridge and taking it out to the west, trough in the east over the weekend, the first shot, and then another shot that comes in. The European has a bit of a stronger shot than the GFS does for next Tuesday into Wednesday, and then yet another one as we move toward the end of next week. So this is not a pattern that says long-term heat for the east. This is one that says get ready for fronts every 3 days or so. It gets hot and humid for a day or two, and that's just about it. And I have to tell you, I mean, this air mass we've been in has been so unrelenting and has made things so miserable for a lot of folks. It's just horribly uncomfortable. Dew points at like 77, 78. You really don't see that around here. I think once I seem to recall there was one time, I don't remember when it was specifically, but I could remember seeing a dew point of 80 or 81 at Newark in some heat wave back in the early 2000s. This is very unusual for the air to be like this, where you can cut it with a knife. It almost feels like you're swimming. Not nice. The one upside today was that a lot of spots had a tough time getting to the 90-degree mark because we had clouds that developed overnight. They didn't really get out of the way this morning, and then you had the buildups that developed in the showers and thunderstorms and the blow-off clouds from that. It really did cut down on the amount of sunshine. Some spots did get to 90 for the 6th consecutive day in parts of New Jersey, but most of the area really did not get much out of the 80s, so we're kind of happy about that. Let's just take a quick look. As far as severe weather is concerned, here's the Storm Prediction Center's severe weather outlook for this evening. This is at 6:25 Eastern Time, so the real-time radar is being reflected behind it. If you are watching this on a replay later tonight, please bear that in mind and check for the latest status on severe weather in your particular area by going to weather.gov and click on your local National Weather Service office. But you can see the storms in the northeast that are dropping south or even southwestward. You've got a marginal to slight risk of severe weather in the central plains to the upper Midwest. It looks like a couple of strong lines of thunderstorms developing there this evening. A little small area of marginal risk in northern Alabama, Mississippi, and parts of Tennessee, also in parts of Texas, in East Texas, and that's it. Otherwise, it's kind of a general area of thunderstorms everywhere else. The sea breeze front is working pretty well across Florida. You can kind of see that in action as the thunderstorms formed just west of the Florida East Coast and then intensified as they moved toward the Florida West Coast. So there's been a considerable amount of action there today from Naples. Again, the thunderstorms have been setting up the last few days from Naples to Port Charlotte up to about Tampa, right in there. Those areas getting some of the heaviest thunderstorm activity. And other than that, there are the usual pop-up storms going on everywhere else. So you get an idea of where this is all going. By the way, let me come back to I want to go back to that tropical system that's off the East Coast. I want to show you the RGEM model because I thought that was pretty interesting. The RGEM, earlier at least, picked up on it pretty well. Let's see if it did on this one. I have a feeling that it did not, but why don't we take a look? And actually, there it is. You see that little circle there that's right out here? That is the low-level center that I guess it's trying to, that it picks out of this. And on this particular run, it really doesn't do very much with it. There's still a bit of, yeah, it really doesn't do very much with it at all. It does flare up that line of storms with the cold front. I haven't been paying too much attention to the RGEM, so now that I have, let's see how it works, how it does this Friday. But it actually generates some rather strong thunderstorms midday to early afternoon. The Storm Prediction Center has got a marginal risk for parts of New England extending down into maybe southern New England, but it doesn't have much more than that. I just wonder whether that may wind up getting extended further south over time. It does show some fairly strong storms here with that cold front before it nears, the front does move offshore, and there's that beautiful high that comes in for the weekend. I'll show you on the run before, the 12Z run had a much better reflection of that surface low as it comes out from southwest of the Bahamas and moves northwestward at least into Friday morning. You can see it there spinning around. I mean, this would be, you know, it's weak. It's just a tropical, you know, maybe it's a weak tropical depression or just basically a weak surface low that's moving northwestward. There doesn't appear to be a whole lot with respect to how it's handling the convection, how the model's handling convection. Doesn't mean it's right, but it is something that we'll probably just watch. The Hurricane Center seems to be putting some emphasis on this with the 60% chance, which, you know, usually, or at least lately, a lot of these models, you know, the models have been, you know, like to spin up stuff. And, you know, once upon a time, you could rely on the fact that the models didn't handle tropical systems at all, so they barely showed them. They barely had reflections of them. You could have Category 3 hurricanes, and some of the more primitive models really didn't show them. So we've gotten kind of used to waiting for models to spin up lows, and at least this time around, it doesn't appear to be doing so. But the Hurricane Center sees something in the upper air pattern that suggests that maybe this thing has a shot of developing into a tropical depression. Again, I would probably favor that even if it does happen, it would be something that would interact with that front and eventually just get either sheared out, or it would wind up turning northeastward. This is Hurricane Fabio in the Pacific, which is past its peak. One of the few times in the Pacific where you forecast something to become a Category 3, and it just missed, I believe, or if it did, it just briefly became a Category 3. Now it's moved far enough north where it's entered into the colder waters there as it moves northwestward, and it's going to be gone in another day or two. So it goes to the Pacific graveyard. Okay, and there you have it. So I'm going to come back full screen and check out you guys on the chat, what you're chatting about today. Again, happy 4th of July to everybody. It's nice to see a few folks on tonight. I know it's kind of a holiday. No, I'm sorry, it is a holiday. It's the 4th of July. I'm just so used to working holidays. I always, for me, it's kind of a holiday. Fallen Angel, nice to see you here. Jason Schaefer, David Schwartz, Gary Rivard hasn't been here in a while. Aham oh boy. You guys that leave and come back, you got to hang around long enough for me to like make sure I've got how to pronounce your name. So you know what, Aham, nice to see you again. Just trying. Priscilla Mayu, happy 4th to you. Robert Hurley, Matthew Warman, what is the timing of the cold front and severe weather in southern New England on Friday? I'm thinking, probably around noontime. Although fronts kind of like to come in during the mid and late afternoon, the models seem to be pushing this around the middle of the day. So all the models are kind of consistent with that. So let's say around noontime, at least from what I'm seeing at the moment. Fallen Angel, my experience with fireworks and humidity this high is that the smoke cannot evaporate and just builds and builds, and then you can't see the fireworks at all. You know what? That's a very good point. David Schwartz, thank you for hitting Super Chat tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you. That's a really good point. The air being so heavy, I bet you that happens, that you wind up the smoke having a real tough time evacuating and blocking the view. But these professional fireworks that they do, I think they probably have that factored out somehow. But we'll find out. We'll find out in a few hours when all the big fireworks shows get underway. Do I recommend a hurricane tracking app, Fallen Angel? Hurricane Pro by Kitty Code LLC has ceased operations. I've used that app for probably 6 years. You know what, Fallen Angel? Let me look into this. I have to tell you, I'm not a big app user when it comes to weather, because I'm always basically either in front of my laptop or desktop. When I'm on the road, I'm not looking at my phone unless I have to pull down a radar or something. But let me ask around to you got to ask the 20-something meteorologists and weather enthusiasts, because they know what the go-to app is. So I got a few hooks in a couple of groups. I'll ask it, and just please remind me, because I do tend to be a bit forgetful. So I will do that for you. Duty Fingers 101, having a doozy of a thunderstorm. Where are you? God is shooting fireworks down here. I'd be curious as to where you are. Rich Rothmansky, dew points at Kennedy at one point in the high 70s. It was god awful. It really was. It didn't feel, that was last night. It didn't feel too bad this morning, because at least where I was, it actually was. It felt less unreasonable. Let's put it that way. In terms of the humidity, because of the cloud cover, but eventually it did get kind of soupy, that's for sure. Okay, I'm trying to get to all your questions here. I also got to keep an eye on the time. Robert Hurley, what happened with my weather app? Okay, so here's what I did. I decided that it was time for me to move away from that, and I am developing something of my own. And I hopefully will have it ready to go in a couple of weeks. I will tell you that more than likely it will not be available on iTunes first. I think it will probably be available on Google Play. So if you are on an Android device, you may be able to get it, and it will be free. This one. I've kind of decided to go a different route. I'm going to experiment with a few things. And I still have some details to work it out, but as soon as I know all the fine details, I will let you know. Johnny Quest, big slow moving back building storms here in Western Virginia, 4 to 6 inches. Roads are closed, trees are down. Boy, it is unrelenting for you. It just doesn't stop. But you know what? That cold front comes through, that dry air mass comes in, and I think you should be okay. That frontal boundary moves to the south. Thank you, David. I will get myself a cigar right after work, because the cigar store around here is open late, so it's on my way home. Let's see. Matthew, more weather caught on the NAM model starts around 8 a.m. Friday. The cold front. That might be a little bit too fast. I'm thinking midday, Matthew, as I said earlier, and I, that's one thing to remember. If it comes in earlier in the day, that might mean that the thunderstorms will be a bit less severe. The RGEM argues for a later in the day passage, and has a much more robust line of thunderstorms. D.O. Nankumar lists the live stream because of the Belmar Park Independence Day racing. Yes. I wanted to go to Belmont this Saturday, but I'm thinking I may not be able to. I haven't been to Belmont Park in quite a while, and I was trying to find a way to get there this Saturday before they go to Saratoga in a couple of weeks. But I am going to definitely make sure I get myself up to Saratoga. Greenfire 919, pollen counts. For what area, if you could elaborate for me, I'll do a little research and see what I can find. Do I see lower humidity for Norfolk? That front does get far enough south weather and low, and you know how far south it gets. If the frontal boundary gets down into South Carolina, you should get a little bit of dew point relief down your way. But you know that's not always an easy thing to do during the summertime to get a front down that far south. So let's evaluate that again on Thursday. Lower Hudson Valley for pollen counts. Okay, you know what? Let me ask my colleague Joe Rayo about that because he knows the Hudson Valley extremely well, better than I do. I know it pretty well, but he knows it much better than I do. Dew points in Connecticut this weekend. I would think maybe Saturday will be down in the upper 40s and low 50s. Wouldn't be surprised. And 50s on Sunday for dew points. This is going to be a nice dry air mass. And I don't think, well, Johnny Quest, that's a tough thing with you. I want to just take a look again really fast. It seems like the front really kind of pushes all the way down. So I think it should clear you. That's a pretty big high that comes down, and it comes down fairly far to the south. So it should not be. The frontal boundary, if anything, is going to be off the southeast coast, and then inland in southernmost South Carolina, across Georgia, back through central Alabama and central Mississippi. This is a fairly strong shot of air that we're talking about that is moving southward. Israel, hold on a second, okay? Let me go back. Early afternoon for you, Israel. I think the RGM and NAM short range, they're usually no good in their long range. Yeah, well, look, they only go out, the NAM only goes out, there is no long range on the NAM. It only goes out 84 hours. The short range, the RGM only goes out 48, except every other run it goes out 54. So there really is no long range. But we've seen often enough that even in these short range models, they can make some radical changes. Did I show you the? Did I show you guys the RGM before? I did show it to you, but did I have it up? Jason says I did not, unless I was late to change it. Let me try that again. Oh, you know why? Because I had the wrong. All right, I know what I did. Hang on a second. So let me show you the RGM. I apologize, Jason. I just saw what you posted, and thanks. Let me fix this. All right. See, the problem is I'm switching back and forth from a couple of sources, so I got to remember it. That's why I try to double check what I got. But this is the RGM model for Saturday. This is at 8 o'clock Friday evening. I'm sorry, that's 8 o'clock Friday evening. Let me back it up. See, the RGM has the front coming through later in the day. It does have some thunderstorms around noontime, and then it just kind of takes all afternoon for that front to move out, and finally by evening it's offshore. But a couple of hours makes a huge difference. This is 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, and the RGM does develop some rather impressive thunderstorms. So we'll evaluate this again tomorrow and see where the models take us. I think that I happen to believe that there will be some strong thunderstorms, and then this will be widespread activity. Everybody's going to see something out of this, rather than what we've been dealing with the last couple of days, which are these clusters of heavy showers and storms where some people get into them and some people don't. Okay, so I just corrected that. I thought there was Saharan dust to stop development. You'll all say something different. I know that there has been some Saharan dust. How much there is and whether it inhibits development remains to be seen. I don't know that there's enough of there's a Saharan dust influence, Roxanne, off the southeast coast. I did see something about yesterday where there was a Saharan dust that was going into parts of South Texas, but I don't think there's a Saharan dust issue with the system that's off the Atlantic at this point. From time to time during most hurricane seasons, that dust does get in the way. And I know we all say something different. It's all a matter of looking at the information, and we all have our own opinions and how we manage our expertise. So right now, my own personal viewpoint here is, with these systems, is that the ones that we're seeing right now, I'm not really overly concerned about either one. The upper air conditions for the one in the Atlantic might be a bit better for development, but at the end of the day, the flow along the East Coast would not favor anything coming ashore. It would just wind up getting either absorbed by that cold front or kicked out. And the one that's out in the Eastern Atlantic, even if it does organize in the next couple of days, will be running into some hostile conditions by the time it reaches into the northeast Caribbean, or just northeast of the northernmost Leeward Islands. All right, folks, let's leave it at that. It's time for everybody to go back to their barbecues and swimming pools, assuming that there are no thunderstorms around where you are. So let's go enjoy our 4th of July and fireworks tonight. Be sure that you are safe through all of this, and maybe it's better to have the experts handle it than yourselves. But you know what? I'm not your mommy, so we'll just leave it that way. Okay. Thanks for those of you, by the way. Just a quick reminder: you can, if you shop on Amazon, you can do it through the link on the descriptor to this live stream or on the video if you're watching this later on. Amazon, I am a participant in the Amazon Services LLC program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for channels like mine to earn fees by linking to Amazon and its affiliated sites. So if you shop on Amazon, if you go through my link, you get your stuff at the great Amazon prices. Amazon throws me back some coins so I can get myself a few cigars. Doesn't cost you an extra dime, and it's a great and easy way to support my channel, and nothing comes out of your pocket. Thank you for those of you who have done so. Thank you very much for being here. Enjoy the rest of your night, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show will be on tonight on Facebook at roughly 9:15 Eastern Time.